With that said, I learned. I remember going to college for a couple of years, way back in the day, early '90s, and they did this testing, and I did really well. But I realized after I took this testing that I used all three: verbal, kinetic, where you're using your hands, and visual techniques to integrate new information. So, uh, but one of my strongest modes that I rely upon is kinetic. So, through giving expression, I'm very expressive, and in my expressing of my ideas and my thoughts and my experience, it uh, becomes integrated at a deeper level. And I often find that without the kinetic expression, um, understanding can be very difficult for me. I can comprehend, I can regurgitate, but it doesn't mean I can comprehend facts, I can regurgitate facts, but it doesn't mean I understand them. And I think in this understanding aspect, it's crucial for me to have that, to have understanding. Understanding is what brings an avenue or a vehicle for my spirit. And like I said in the previous clip, it's that spirit, that Holy Spirit, that enlivens any system and all systems. And I know it sounds metaphysical, and when words fail, we can use symbol. You know, I was watching a movie last night. Said something about how science was just before science was magic, and magic is only science that hasn't been fully understood yet. So, I rely upon the metaphysical terms such as the Holy Spirit and life pulse and other kinds of terms that I've garnered over a couple of years of really trying to figure out, what it is that works for me. Um, this leads me to a conversation I had today with a friend who I'm trying to think of how to relate this in general terms instead of using specifics. I like to keep, private things private, and if I'm going to be talking about other people, I like to keep them rather anonymous. Uh, well, I was explaining to him that different people have different ways of expressing themselves, and they're all valid. Every one of them is valid. And so someone may respond to a request in, oh, sure, okay. Another person may say, well, I don't know. And then another person may say, no way. And all of them are valid. However, this person has the idea of an outcome that they want to happen. And as a result, they cannot have their own genuine response. They can only have the response that will get them what they want. And I don't see a problem with that. That sounds pretty logical on the surface. But when we understand that eventually we will, when we go contrary to our nature, it comes back to us. We pay a price for that. And, I was just letting him know that it's important to have a genuine response, which he really didn't want to admit to himself. He wants the goal. He doesn't care about how it makes him feel. And you know, we each have our ability to make our own choices to do whatever. But for me, being that I see this Holy Spirit, if you will, this life pulse coming up as it does in response to life and living, that the goal is tentative, depending upon what occurs in the process of either accomplishing it or not accomplishing it, or the goal being met not necessarily the way I would think it would be met, but being met in a different way. And what this leads me to is a working hypothesis. It's my basic stance and posture is one that here's a working hypothesis that I present as a foundation, but that foundation can change according to whatever's happening inside of me, because I can make something happen, but that does not mean that I am in accord with my own nature, with my own life. And it never seems to fail that when I go against my own nature, I have hell to pay. And when I go through some negative experiences, I realize that because I'm in relationship to others, they also share in negative consequences.